Hey traders, welcome to Charts and Coffee. Great to have you all here. Happy Monday, gang. Hope you had a great weekend. I went through, I'd watched, I don't know how many of you, I guzzled anything good, saw a good movie. Let me know if there's a good movie out there. I have been aching to go to a good movie and I cannot find one. So if there's something out there that's good, no scary movies, that's the cutoff. Let me know. Maybe you read a good book. I guzzled The Diplomat this weekend, which on Netflix. That's really, really good. So watch that one. And getting ready for a short week. Getting ready for a short week. So we have the end of quarter coming up. So the big picture. What are we dealing with this week? Big picture. We have a shortened week, but it's a weird one. We'll get into that in a moment. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is a bank holiday. We've got Black Friday, and ultimately, when I look at the way in which let's think about this purely. Forget the holiday for a moment. I'm going to talk purely from a perspective of trading. All right, because I know in terms of where we are at the end of the quarter, this is very important. When we go into Friday, what I'm going to be asking myself is, or even Thursday, because the markets aren't, well, the stock market is not open. So on Thursday, there's one big question we have to ask ourselves. Are money managers looking at the quarter being in the black? Which positions are in the black? Which positions are in the red? Right? So when I look at the economic calendar, when I'm setting up my trades, of course, we're going to acknowledge there's going to be less volume as we wind down. Well, actually, no, that's not true. This is going to be a tricky. This is going to be a tricky end of quarter, because on one hand, when we have the markets are closed on Friday, Powell is speaking. The futures markets are open, and we have PCE. PCE is probably as important, if not more important, than non-farm payroll. So I'm going to have to watch the market on Friday for two reasons. One, I'm a trader. It's my job. And I'm going to be trading some futures on Friday morning with the PCE. We have a hot zone set up, and it is my job to look for opportunity. And I will do that on Friday. But the stock markets are closed. That means everyone who holds stocks for the first quarter of 2024 is going to ask themselves all week long, and probably has been, how do I window dress for Q1? Q1 is a report card. Right? If you're managing money, let's imagine all of us here in the room manage money, other people's money, not our own, right? Let's imagine that for a moment. We have to answer to them. They want to know, why am I keeping my money with you? And did you make me any money in Q1? I have done the management side before. It is thankless. It is brutal. Hats off to people who do it, right? But it is brutal because people want to know, why aren't you in this? And why aren't you in that? And why aren't I making more money? My buddy, that's what they hear. It's nonstop. And I get it. So all those people who are managing money have to say, look, I got to justify this person holding their capital with me for another quarter or another year or just even another month. I got to show them that I've got a good book. Window dressing is not a bad thing. It's just a function of the business of managing money. So at the end of the quarter, they're going to say, all right, what's been up? What are my clients going to want to see in their portfolio as I send them this first quarter report card? I hope that makes sense, because that is the psychology that dominates what's going to happen this week. Shortened week or not, Powell or not, PCE or not, that's a huge part of flow. And we have to just say, you know what? Aside from the shortened week, which is going to make it more challenging because more things are going to happen in a smaller period of time, as traders and investors are also concerned about what is the main inflation metric on Friday going to yield, because this is the one that's plugged into the Federal Reserve's models for whether or not they can actually think about cutting in June or July. So it's going to be a very tricky week. All right. And I'm not talking my book. I mean, look, we're long 4 positions from the weekend in the Sector Secrets Mastery. AMD, JP Morgan, BITO, and AbbVie. 3 out of 4 of them are already at either a target and break even, and JP Morgan is the only one that we just took on Friday, and we're fine. Uh, I'm watching the S&P pull back a little bit. That's fine. It's early. The idea here for me is if I'm in financials, if I'm in healthcare, if I'm in semiconductors, am I in the names that are going to benefit from window dressing? Yes, they should be in an uptrend, but if they're going to benefit from window dressing, those are not mutually exclusive this week. Right? This is not the week to bottom pick. This is not the week to top pick. It never is a week to top pick, right? So if you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to capitulate to the long side, if you've been a bear, and if you're watching this, you're not, anyone watching Charts and Coffee is definitely not a bear, right? No perma bears in this room, in this show. So if I'm looking at right now what's happening with the S&P, the Nas, hey, come on down, right? We need the green to meet the gray. We want that pullback, and you can see that as long as we weaken and are supported in the gray, it's not just the S&P. These are not well-chosen examples, gang. I'm going to run through the live markets. As long as the green meets the gray, the Nas has been far more volatile. For those of you in the mastery, for those of you that read the top tier outlook, S&P Dow, well, really industrials, financials, and other high concentration weighted stocks that are outperforming in outperforming sectors. That's the filter. That's the scan. That's the only scan you need. Save yourself some time. That's all you need, right? And as long as we're focusing on those, the follow through has been there. And that's what I'm running through right now. So AbbVie's a leader in healthcare. JP Morgan's a leader in financials. BITO is, well, following Bitcoin. And AMD. AMD is a quirky one. AMD was a mean reversion entry using the top tier wave. But it too, it's fine. So these are things that I'd like to consider. And by the way, I hemmed and hawed about AMD because I don't like the red grab candles. I would far prefer an entry in Taiwan Semi. So for those of you wondering, Rog, is AMD on your radar? Not again this week. I can promise you that. If we get a pullback in semiconductors, I'm going to go with semiconductors. I'm going to go with say Taiwan Semi. And by the way, you might say, well, what of NVIDIA, Rog? Look, gang, NVIDIA is really spendy for most traders. And one of the best ways to take advantage of a sector that we like is not necessarily find the popular kidding class, but play the broader group. So those are things that I'm looking at this week. That's the reality of this week. The holiday aside, this is a huge week in terms of end of quarter, Powell, PCE. And again, Powell and PCE on a day that the stock market is closed is going to make for a very odd Monday session. All right. So with that being said, if you haven't started your week off with the economic calendar and you're wondering, Rob, where would I even look for the economic calendar? Forex Factory is a great place to start. Just click on their calendar tab and just scroll through. You'll see today, nothing, right? You'll see tomorrow, consumer confidence number at 10. You'll see Wednesday, we've got the crude oil inventories. We've got Waller. You move on through, we've got GDP, and that's another one. Yeah, we got Thursday GDP. And you wonder, Rob, that doesn't make your cut? Not compared to everything else. But yeah, GDP on Thursday, pending home sales, they moved the consumer University of Michigan data, they moved up to Thursday. Usually those are Friday releases. And then we go into Friday, and this is where it's weird. So on one hand, we've got a bank holiday, right? You've got a bank holiday, and take a look, all these bank holidays. And we still actually have Powell, right? We still have Powell. So interesting. If we look at this week, Friday has to be considered. I kind of alluded to it before. Friday is as much Good Friday as it is sort of Black Thursday or Black Friday. Think about the trading side of things, right? Are we going to see window dressing in those stronger components? This is not a week for me unless that PCE is really going to spook traders waiting there at the end of the week. I have to ask myself, what is in the black, right? At the end of every quarter. So yes, absolutely, we have the Good Friday holiday, but it's also sort of a Black Friday mindset. All right, I hope that makes sense. And then it is very unusual. I will say that is crazy that on Good Friday, we have PCE and Powell. I can't remember the last time we've had a major significant holiday where stock markets are closed and data is being released. I can't remember the last time that's happened. Anyway, that's what we've got this week, gang. So let's see. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, futures will be open, but I think they're a shortened session. Usually futures will close just after lunch on Friday. For those of you that are wondering, Rob, what is open? Forex obviously is open. Futures will be open. And so they really just should not have these two events on Good Friday. Just a bad idea from the perspective of you're not going to have full participation. So heads up, heads up. Yeah, futures will be moving and grooving for a little bit, but lower volume, right? Lower volume. Okay, moving on. Let's see what else we have here. And by the way, when I talk about what the thinking is going into the end of the quarter or the end of the year, I've managed money a little bit, not like some of my buddies who have literally hundreds of millions under management. This is what they tell me they do under the pressure of a lot of times what their clients expect. It's a hard job. It's a really hard job. And it depends on what kind of fund it is as well, obviously. All right, so let's see what we have here. Questions. Legend of Bagger Vance. I'll tell you, Araz, not often will I say that the movie was better than the book. I'm a huge Stephen Pressfield fan. Love the book, but the movie was really good too. Yeah, it's one of those few movies you go, gosh, that might have been better than the book. Dune 2 at IMAX, rainy days. All right. Dune 2, I'd have to watch the first Dune. I keep debating whether I want to commit to that, but all right, I'll keep that in mind. Oh, wait a minute. Futures are not open on Friday? Oh, usually, okay. That makes it even weirder. Usually there's a half day on futures. Okay, futures are not open on Friday. And there you go. So yeah, those of you who said futures are not open, yeah, Bot was just letting me know the same thing. They close 4 p.m. on Thursday. I just made a weird week even weirder. And that's going to make Thursday's session even more important, even because that is the end of the quarter. Thursday is then, by all effect, the end of the quarter. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And then I wonder if this is correct, that Powell and PCE, I got to wonder if that's not going to get moved. But I see Jerome Powell speaking on all the calendars. So that is very strange. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll definitely revisit this if something updates. Yeah. Forex is open. Futures is not. Go figure. Go figure. Yeah, especially on Good Friday. How weird. All right. So remember, we're thinking about end of quarter. We're thinking about the data coming out, shortened week. And what else do we have here? Yeah, let's take a quick run through bonds and gold. I like when bonds and gold move together. Ultimately, bonds getting above the 200, back in the slightly bullish hemisphere. But frankly, that doesn't mean a lot. I don't want anyone to look at the action through this year in ZB and think this is what ZB is doing. ZB's already done what it's supposed to do. ZB has already sort of run up ahead of the eventual rate cuts that we're expecting, and now it's in a holding pattern. So unless we look back, say March to March, unless we look back, say the last quarter of last year to now, we're going to lose the perspective of what's really happening. This is not the sum total of bonds. Bonds aren't saying anything right now, other than we've already made our move and we need some reason to keep moving higher. That's really it. We need some reason to keep moving higher. So you'll see heavy lifting was done back here from October to basically the end of the year. And there's no reason for bonds to do anything other than likely hold. And you can see, even though it's not pretty, it is for the most part holding. And that holding means the expectation for lower yields. When bonds go up, when TLT goes up, that reflects lower yields. Same thing with ZN, by the way. And if yields are going lower, then the question is, what is that doing to real interest rates? What is that doing to real yields? And if you take a look at gold, right, whether that be for the year or whether that be in the same kind of time horizon we just looked at bonds, gold continues to move higher. The chasm between the shorter end of the yield curve and the nominal yield of a bond and the rate of inflation continues to narrow, and that sends gold higher. And gold's just like bonds, sort of waiting for that next why, that next reason to continue its overall march higher. The cool thing is, for the first time this year, in a sustained way, gold has held an uptrend. I do want to get long gold. I do want to be a buyer, and it likely will be the daily price movement range that will trigger it. Okay. Likely will be that potential for that next level would be, well, this was Friday's level. We'll get an updated level, but it probably won't be too far off from this level, which is around 2158 down to around 2145. It'll be a little bit different, but it should not be that much different. But we're looking for that green meets the gray. So the daily price movement ranges plot right at the bell. So in 14 minutes, we'll have the forecast, if you will, of volatility for today's session. And that will plot on my 1 hour chart, and that will plot on my daily chart. All right. Eddie asked, do I think high volatility next week on Monday? That's what I'm thinking, only because of the odd situation that's happening on Friday, right? On Friday, because again, we've got Good Friday, but then mentally we've got Black Friday. What stocks are worth keeping in the books? Which stocks are the ones that I need to sort of window dress? Yeah, so I would imagine Monday is going to be pretty volatile. And remember, it is the first trading day of the new quarter, right? That's the other thing to remember. So we're closing the books on Q1. Q2 is beginning. And so there is definitely that mindset of starting something fresh. And if there is going to be bottom picking, this is still the same thing we talked about at the end of the year, right? As we wrapped up the year, end of Q4, said, window dressing is what? It's as much strength getting stronger as weakness getting weaker, most punctuated at the end of the year, and then milder throughout the year. But at the beginning of the new year, at the beginning of the new month, we did a little bit of study on flows in top tier outlook, because again, that psychology of what's positive, what's in the black for the quarter is going to punctuate this week. But next week, it's possibly going to be a little bit of a window for bottom picking. Think about the way healthcare underperformed all in 2023, and then healthcare benefited from a bit of sector rotation. Sector rotation is just another way of talking about a very tactical bottom picking, meaning, what underperformed, what are we going to take profit in that's sitting at the top of our, I like to call it a Ferris wheel. What's at the top of the Ferris wheel that's going to come down and the bottom of the Ferris wheel comes up. And so we look at profit taking at the top of those relative outperformers, where we look at the bottom of the list and ask, where could that profit taking benefit? And that was very much a little bit of tech into healthcare, a little bit. Healthcare has been benefiting. So I'll look for a smaller version of that at the end of the quarter. Right? What are we going to see at the very beginning of Q2 get some attention, that at this point, someone who buys something that's been a little lagging, or it's an up and comer, right? They've got the whole quarter to see if it can perform. And there's a lot to be said about that. So I'll definitely look at Monday as obviously new quarter, opportunity for maybe some sector rotation. And then obviously I'm not going to step away from continuation. We're not bearish. I think that as long as we keep punching up to higher highs, the bears, folks who've been consistently top picking, folks who have been not acknowledging the uptrend that we are in fact in on the daily time frame, and the time frame matters, right? That we are in. Yeah, at some point those folks are going to capitulate, and it's an interesting thing, because capitulation is on one hand a little less selling pressure, perhaps, but oftentimes that capitulation, with those last laggard group of traders acknowledge that the trend is in place, sometimes that could be a near-term topping pattern too. So we'll see what happens with that, with how much capitulation there will be at the end of Q1, where traders who just refuse to acknowledge that we've had 3 full months of uptrends are going to say, well, I guess we'll succumb to the uptrend. So we'll see. But if there's going to be capitulation, it'll be the acknowledgement of a very strong Q1. And it was, gang. And it was. And that's why I say, if you're listening to perma bears, if you're listening to folks who are pointing out all the reasons that the stock market should not be doing this, and yet it is, that's costing you money. I may not agree with what's happening, but there's no percentage deduction by by buying a market that should not be up. It's up, right? Price is price. So let's continue to focus on being patient relative performers, and we'll see what happens from here. Be good to each other, gang. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same station.